ballroom shimmered with nostalgia and vanity. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen fireworks over polished marble, reflecting the curated smiles of Tessa's former classmates as they reunited in filtered glamour. It had been 15 years since high school, and Tessa had been planning this night like it was her coronation. Her designer gown clung to her figure, her hair was styled to precision, and her laugh, loud, breathy, performative, carried easily over the jazz quartet. She was flawless, untouchable, or so she thought. Then Caleb walked in. The heavy doors swung open, and for a heartbeat, the crowd shifted, heads turned, conversations paused. There he stood. Broad-shouldered, tailored in midnight blue, every step deliberate, eyes calm but sharp. He wore confidence like a custom suit, and behind it, something colder. Something. Tessa's smile twitched when she saw him. She hadn't really expected he'd come, despite the polite invitation she sent out of obligation, or maybe to flaunt how far she'd come. She had reinvented herself since the divorce. New house, new friends, new last name, as if Caleb had been a typo in her biography, and yet here he was, smiling, calm, civilized. He hugged a few familiar faces, shook hands, and even complimented Tessa's dress like it was a red carpet moment. She played along, kissing him on the cheek with the same rehearsed warmth she used for social media reels. If it weren't for the small flash drive he palmed as he slipped past the AV table, you'd almost believe they were still friends. Almost. Caleb took a seat near the back, drink in hand, watching her float through the room like a high priestess of image. She toasted to old memories and new beginnings, and the crowd ate it up. But he didn't come for champagne or closure. He came for precision. He waited patiently as Tessa preened for the cameras, soaking up praise and envy in equal measure. She had worked so hard to control the narrative. She had no idea how fast it was about to unravel. And when the house lights dimmed and the projector buzzed to life, Caleb smiled to himself. Because this slideshow, it wouldn't be nostalgia, it would be revelation. The reunion unfolded like a carefully choreographed play, with Tessa at the center of every scene. She glided through the ballroom, her laughter a little too loud, her stories a touch too polished. Old friends complimented her transformation, how stunning she looked, how successful she seemed, and Tessa basked in it, offering air kisses and curated half-truths with practiced ease. Every word, every gesture was a brushstroke in the portrait she had painted of her post-Caleb life. Caleb watched from a quiet table near the back, sipping club soda. His presence unsettled her more than she let on, though she refused to let it show. Occasionally her gaze flicked toward him, measuring, calculating, trying to read what he was doing here. But Caleb didn't react. He was a still figure in a sea of motion, calm and composed like a man who had nothing left to lose, and everything planned to perfection. He spoke to a few classmates, laughed quietly at the occasional inside joke from their school days, and politely declined the open bar. There was no need to drink tonight. He needed clarity, focus. Tessa, however, ramped up her performance. During her toast, she thanked everyone who believed in her when she had nothing but ambition and a broken past to rebuild from. Her eyes flitted briefly to Caleb as she said it. A few people chuckled. Others exchanged glances. The jab was subtle, but unmistakable. Caleb didn't flinch. He knew this was her way of rewriting history, making herself the phoenix rising from ashes she had scattered herself. She had spent the evening lacing every conversation with hints of success, her interior design business, the house on the hills, the European trips. Her current husband, conspicuously absent, was traveling for work, though her tone made it sound more like he had been strategically excluded. Caleb's hands rested on the table, fingers steepled in thought. He could expose her a dozen different ways, but that wasn't the point. Timing was everything. He wasn't here to make a scene. He was here to create an echo, one that would ripple through every conversation long after tonight ended. The slideshow was scheduled for later in the evening, billed as a trip down memory lane with senior photos, class trip snapshots, and yearbook quotes. It was the emotional core of the reunion, the moment Tessa had personally curated with the AV staff to frame her as the glowing host and nostalgic queen bee. But Caleb had already made his move. When he returned to his seat, Tessa was holding court again, reminiscing about cheerleading routines and the time she almost didn't graduate because she was too ambitious for her own good. The crowd laughed. She was in her element. Her voice dripped with charisma, every word carefully delivered to emphasize her glow-up story. But Caleb knew her glow had come at a cost. He had the receipts, literally. Screenshots, hotel bookings, messages meant for someone else, photos she never thought would surface, and one that would break the illusion entirely: Tessa in a hotel room, mid-embrace with a man whose face the class knew far too well. Caleb glanced at the stage, where the microphone stood ready. He didn't need to say a word tonight. The truth would speak for him. The lights began to dim, the projector screen flickered, and Tessa, still smiling, had no idea the stage she built was about to collapse beneath her. The screen glowed to life as the ballroom lights dimmed, casting a soft blue hue across the crowd. Tessa stood near the stage, her expression one of poised anticipation, like a performer awaiting applause. She had handpicked every image for this slideshow, photos from pep rallies, beach trips, prom night. This was supposed to be her moment, a glossy montage of the girl she had been and the woman she had become. But something was wrong. The first image didn't match the lineup. It wasn't the opening shot of the cheerleading squad, no sepia-toned nostalgia or class quote. Instead, the crowd was greeted by a high-resolution image of a hotel lobby. Modern, cold, unmistakable. Confused murmurs rippled through the audience. A few people chuckled, assuming it was a tech glitch or prank. But Caleb sat still, eyes trained forward, jaw tight with focus. The next slide hit harder. A time-stamped photo of Tessa entering a hotel room, looking over her shoulder as if checking to see if anyone was watching. She wore a red coat, the same one she'd posted about just last month. "Vintage Chanel. Paris vibes," the caption had read. Now whispers grew louder. Heads turned toward her. Tessa's smile faltered. She tried to laugh it off, stepping toward the AV table in confusion. "That's not... sorry, everyone. I think there's been a mix-up." But the voice of reason was quickly drowned out as the third image filled the screen. Tessa wrapped around a man in a half-lit room. The intimacy in the photo was undeniable, legs tangled, hands greedy. No ambiguity, no escape. And then the fourth slide landed like a slap. The man's face was now visible. It was Ian Keller, high school golden boy turned respected English teacher. He'd been a keynote speaker earlier in the evening, talking about the power of memories, how high school shaped who they became. Now he was frozen on screen, shirtless, entangled with a woman who had just toasted to reinvention. A stunned gasp sucked the air from the room. You could practically hear heartbeats pounding beneath sequins and designer blazers. Ian's wife, seated at a nearby table, turned to him with a look of stunned betrayal. He stood abruptly, knocking over a glass, muttering something unintelligible before storming out. His wife followed, face like stone. Tessa's voice cracked as she reached the stage. "This isn't real. This is photoshopped. Caleb, what the hell is this?" But Caleb didn't move. He didn't need to. The evidence was moving for him. Next came screenshots, text messages, threads of flirtation, secret plans, late-night rendezvous. Her words were unmistakable. "He doesn't suspect a thing. I told him he'd be too tired to come. I can't wait to see you again. Let's use the back entrance this time." The audience had gone dead silent. Every glowing screen now reflected in wide eyes as people filmed or took photos. There was no stopping it. The truth wasn't just out, it was viral. Even if the projector went black now, the damage had been done. Tessa stood frozen, center stage, surrounded by old friends and ancient judgments. The very people she wanted to impress were now witnesses to her unraveling. Her face, once so composed, contorted with panic and disbelief. Tears welled, but no one moved to comfort her. Her mask was gone, and in its place stood a woman unrecognizable, even to herself. Caleb stood slowly, buttoning his jacket with casual grace. He walked down the aisle, each step echoing in the silence, then paused at the foot of the stage. Tessa turned toward him, lips trembling as if some excuse might still work, as if he might still care. He leaned in close, his voice low, deliberate, meant only for her. "Now that's a memory no one will forget." Then, without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving her to stand in the ruin of her own illusion. The projector went dark, but the silence it left behind was heavier than any image. Tessa remained on stage, her body rigid, eyes glazed as if she had been struck. For a moment, no one moved. It was as though time itself was suspended, hanging between disbelief and undeniable truth. Then the murmurs began. Not loud, not chaotic, just the low, electric buzz of judgment humming through the ballroom. Classmates who moments ago toasted her success now turned to each other, whispering behind hands and raising eyebrows. Phones were already out, screens glowing in the dark. The slideshow had been captured, and those images would spread faster than wildfire. Tessa stepped off the stage, heels clicking awkwardly against the polished floor. She clutched her clutch bag like it could shield her from the eyes now fixed on her, not with admiration, but with something sharper: pity, contempt, curiosity. She scanned the room, searching for an ally, a friendly face, anyone to validate her version of reality. But what she saw was distance. Former friends averted their gaze. A group she had laughed with earlier now leaned close, their conversation clearly about her, though none of them dared meet her eyes. Even the event organizer, once thrilled to have her headline the reunion, had melted into the background. Unbelievable, someone muttered. Guess she's still the drama queen, another voice chimed, just loud enough to sting. Tessa stumbled toward the hallway, hoping for an exit, a moment to breathe. But she was intercepted by a former classmate, Rachel, the girl she once tormented in high school for her weight and thrift store wardrobe. Now Rachel looked poised, radiant, and just vindicated enough to smile without saying a word. The look she gave Tessa was surgical. Not cruel, just complete. You okay? Rachel asked with mock sweetness. Tessa didn't answer. Her throat tightened. She brushed past, desperate to escape the ballroom before someone else from her past delivered another casual cut, disguised as concern. Outside the doors, the hotel hallway was quiet and cool, but even here she wasn't safe. Two younger reunion attendees passed by, phones in hand, smirking. She actually said he doesn't suspect a thing, like out loud. Dead ass, it's all over the group chat already. Tessa ducked into the woman's restroom, her breath ragged. She splashed cold water on her face, staring at her reflection in the gilded mirror. Her makeup, flawless at the start of the night, now betrayed her. Foundation cracked, mascara smudged beneath her eyes like bruises of pride. Her perfect image was disintegrating, and for the first time in a long time, she had no script. Inside the ballroom, the event carried on, but it was no longer a celebration. Caleb's reveal had become the new centerpiece. The DJ played on, hesitant at first, but volume slowly rising as if to steer the night away from scandal. Still, no one danced. Ian Keller had already disappeared. Word had it he left the venue entirely, his wife not far behind. Rumors swirled like cigarette smoke. His teaching career, his marriage, his reputation, all on the verge of collapse. And all because of a slideshow. Meanwhile, Caleb was nowhere to be seen. Some said he had gotten into a car and left without a glance back. Others claimed he was seen in the bar downstairs sipping whiskey alone, calm as ever. No one knew for sure, but everyone agreed on one thing. He had orchestrated a takedown so precise, so flawlessly executed, that even those who didn't like him had to respect the elegance of it. And as Tessa emerged from the restroom, trembling but upright, she realized the cruelest part of it all. This night had been designed to make her unforgettable, and it had worked, just not the way she planned. Outside the hotel, the air was thick with summer humidity and scandal. The marquee still glowed with the words "Class of 2008" still shining, ironic now. Inside, the reunion limped along, its original purpose dissolved into hushed gossip and awkward small talk. No one would remember who won the raffle or gave the toast. They would remember the reveal. They would remember Tessa. Caleb stepped out into the night, the soft echo of his shoes swallowed by the hum of distant traffic. He walked calmly across the lot, the valet raising a hand in recognition. Caleb returned it with a nod. No fanfare, no triumphal music, just quiet satisfaction. He didn't look back. There was no need to see the wreckage. It was already etched in the expressions of every person in that room. He knew exactly what he'd done. Not just to Tessa, but to the version of herself she had built atop lies and self-worship. He had shattered the mirror she admired herself in, and all that remained were shards too sharp to step over. Meanwhile, Tessa finally exited through a side door, no longer concerned with being seen. Her heels hung from one hand, her dress slightly wrinkled. Her once dazzling aura had dimmed, replaced by a shell of disbelief. The weight of exposure sat heavy on her shoulders. She spotted Caleb just before he reached his car. For a moment, their eyes met across the parking lot. No words, none needed. She wanted to scream, maybe beg, maybe blame him, but the truth had already spoken louder than anything she could say, and Caleb in his silence was louder still. He opened the car door, paused, and looked back, not at her, but at the glowing hotel sign. A smirk touched his lips, faint but unmistakable. Then he got in, started the engine, and disappeared into the night. Behind him, Tessa stood alone under the soft flicker of the hotel lights. Her face was flushed, not from makeup or champagne, but from the raw sting of consequences. The very moment she thought would immortalize her had become her undoing. She had invited him to prove she'd moved on. Instead, he proved she hadn't moved far at all. And as the wind rustled her hair and whispers echoed from inside, one truth became clear. Some memories don't fade. Some are burned in forever.